Hey guys, what's going on? Want to jump on do another prison story video for you. I've been doing these videos for National Correctional Employees Week, just highlighting some of the good memories I had, some of the good interactions I had while I was working behind the walls. So tonight's story, as I was kind of trying to figure out what to say, how to say it, and all of that, I'm going to tell you how I got to telling this story and why it's so important to me. I didn't grow up wanting to be a correctional officer. Like, I didn't grow up like thinking in my mind when I was 7, 8 years old, I'm going to be a correctional officer. I'm going to go work inside of a prison. No, I had quite the opposite. I was like, I'm going to be a cop. I'm going to be in the Army. I'm going to be something like that, and not the correctional officer route. And I frankly don't know if I even remember anybody in the entire time I was working there that grew up like, I want to be a prison guard. I want to work inside of a prison with, inmates. There were a few people who were like, yeah, in college, like I decided I wanted to work inside the prison or whatever, but nobody that was like, I grew up and knew this was my destiny and calling. So with that being said, why am I telling you all this backstory? I'm telling you this backstory because what kept me showing up to work each and every day, what helped me get through the bad times, what helped me get through the crappy times, what helped me get through the stressful times was the people I worked with. The amazing, awesome correctional employees themselves. And I know that's kind of cheesy, but the reality of it is that's why I'm doing these videos this week. That's why I'm sharing these stories, is to honor my fellow coworkers, to honor the people who are still working inside the institutions, still sacrificing everything they sacrifice. You guys are the ones who allowed me to get through the rough times, the hard times, the good times, the bad times, all of it. So that being said, I'm gonna highlight an interaction I had for many, many years, many, many nights. When I was working graveyard, I started working, and for the purpose of this video, I'll call him Officer Smith. Officer Smith was a great guy to talk to. He would listen. He had great conversation. He always had like the best comebacks. He was always able to, keep a conversation alive and going. And it was always great. It always like lifted my mood. He's like that type of guy, you get done talking to him and it's like, man, kind of like lifted my mood. I feel better. Like I got a good laugh in. We talked about, maybe whatever new policy was put in place or whatever happened during the day, but ultimately at the end of it, like, felt good after the interaction. Well, that developed into, and again, the name's been changed for this video, Coffee Time with Officer Smith. And what I distinctly remember is when I was working 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., it's a super long 12-hour shift. Officer Smith was working 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. at that point. So we were working together. We had crossing shifts. So it was great. I would come in, I'd work my 4 hours with the swing shift crew. We'd hang out, we'd have our good times. We'd talk, we'd interact. They'd all go home because they were working 2 to 10, so they'd all go home at 10. And just about every single night for months at about 10:15, once everybody had kind of settled in, graveyard crew was fully there, swing shift had gone home, Officer Smith would have made a fresh, hot pot of coffee, man. And when you're working graveyard, like, you live on coffee, you drink it all the time. But it wasn't the crappy coffee, it was good coffee. It always was good coffee. And Officer Smith would have it ready, and as I'd be walking down, he just, coffee's ready, and I'd come in and get a cup of coffee, sit down, and sit in the break room, and we just talk and shoot the bowl for a couple minutes, and just had that time to interact. And that became like a thing. It became a thing, so much so that like the entire shift ended up being down there for the first 30-ish minutes of our shift, and we would just talk and interact. And it was one of those things that the nights we got to do that, the times we got to interact like that, it started our shift out right. It didn't matter what happened after we got done with that, but when we had our time to talk and laugh and just brief ourselves and talk about whatever's going on in his life and whatever's going on in my life, it made the rest of the night better. And we did that for at least a year, maybe 2. And it was really interesting because as people were coming and going, him and I were kind of regulars in that crew, and there were a lot of people kind of rotating in and out, and different movements. So we stayed the same though, and it was awesome because that built consistency into my shift to where I started getting excited, where before I would get kind of dread of oh gosh, swing shift guys are going home, this is going to be the long part of the shift's going to start, because the first 4 hours would just fly by, and then the last 8 would just drag. But then I started getting excited because I'd be like, oh man, no, I got coffee with Officer Smith, and then we ended up naming it coffee with Officer Smith, and we ended up calling it that, and we'd literally get to the point where even when we weren't later on down the road working the same shift together, if I did an overtime, or somehow I got bounced to his shift or that post or whatever, I would literally remember walking by, I'd be like, hey, Officer Smith, don't forget, we got, coffee with Officer Smith tonight. And it was that corny, but it meant so much to me. And it helped me get through the night knowing that I would have that little bit of break, that little bit of time to get my mind right, to get my body and mind just in the right zone to be able to push through the rest of my shift. And as I'm highlighting all of these memories, what I really want to highlight about this one, because this is really the real reason why we celebrate National Correctional Employees Week, is it's about you guys. It's about the people who you work with every day. And if you take the time to invest in those relationships and build those relationships, those can be lasting memories. I still have those memories today, and those are still good times in my mind today, and I enjoyed those times, and I hope he did too. I'm pretty sure he did. But it's just, that's what it's all about. You can work in the worst environment. You can work with the hardest people to work with. You can work in horrible conditions, but if you can find that silver lining of building a relationship and a rapport with your coworkers and being able to rely on them, that's what it's all about, man. So I hope you guys got something out of this video. Not sure if I'm going to continue doing these, but wanted to celebrate National Correctional Employees Week. I know I keep saying that, but I just thank you guys for your sacrifice. I just thank you guys for working in an environment that is oftentimes dark, but just remember, if you always look at the darkness, that's all you'll see is the darkness. But if you start looking for the light, you're going to start finding the light. So if you're always looking for the bad, you're just going to notice the bad. But if you start looking for good, you're going to notice the bad less and notice the good more. So thank you guys for what you do. Remember, take care of yourselves. Mental health is a huge thing. Physical health, take care of your bodies, take care of your minds, because you only get one, and it's not worth it to just live in perpetual poor health if you can avoid it. Take the time to take care of yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. You guys are working in a tough industry. It's hard on your bodies, it's hard on your minds, but you can overcome it, and you don't have to become a statistic out of it. So hope you guys get something out of this. If you're not in the corrections industry, take a couple minutes to thank somebody who is. If you do know anybody who is, hope you guys have a wonderful day. God bless.